What gear do I use to create YouTube videos and stream on Twitch? It's one of the most common questions that I get, so in this video, I'm gonna break it all down. I'll explain why I chose each piece of gear that I have and whether or not I buy it again. But before we dive in, I wanna be clear. You don't need any of this to start creating content. Every item in my setup has solved a specific problem that I've faced, and those problems and their solutions were unique to me. I'm also a tech enthusiast, so sometimes I buy gear just because I think it's cool. This isn't just my work, it's also my hobby. Remember that when I started, I had nothing fancy, just an old Dell XPS laptop and a $20 USB microphone. I used that setup for ages before upgrading. So if you want to create content, just start. Gear isn't the barrier, getting out of your own way is. Now, with that out of the way, let's begin by taking a look at my desk. And I have the YouTuber special, the custom-made IKEA desk. I used an IKEA kitchen countertop. This is the Barca Boda, along with some Alex drawers and some cheap IKEA desk legs to make this L-shaped desk. I've attached these cable management trays that I found on Amazon to the back of the desk. These are actually meant for a standing desk, but they work great here. That said, I still have some cable management mess. You just can't avoid it, especially when you like to change out your gear as often as I do, and I'm constantly changing things. The other thing I have down here is a Unify XG 10 gig switch. I have all of my computers connected with 10 gig because I want to be able to record directly to my NAS and also edit directly from my NAS. So with this, I'm able to transfer files very, very quickly to my server and then pull them right back from my server if I need to, or edit directly from the server, which is what I do on my Mac. Next, let's take a look at my gaming PC, or rather my gaming PC's monitor. More on that in a second. This is a BenQ 27-inch 4K color accurate design monitor. I was making themes in Theme Mixer and they were looking pretty bad. And I didn't realize that as I was making the theme because I had adjusted my monitor the way that I like to view things. And as I was making my theme, the theme looked good on the monitor. So I picked this one up, and ever since then, everything that I make on this monitor, whether it's a theme, Lumina settings, or even a thumbnail, people generally don't have a problem with it. And that's because it is a 100% color calibrated monitor. So if you're doing any sort of design work, I highly recommend a monitor such as this one. Attached to the monitor is a BenQ Screen Bar Halo. I have another one of these on my Mac monitors, and for me, I feel like they really reduce eye fatigue. But the reason I wanted this one is because I have one knob that controls both of them. It was one of the nice features of this particular screen bar. Now, the whole reason why my gaming PC isn't in my office is because I'm using this Ethernet KVM. It's just a random one from Amazon. I think it's called the Basic Color. And honestly, this is an amazing product. I can have my PC up to 200 feet or 60 meters away from my office, so long as I have Cat 5 or 6 in both locations. Now, to take a look at my gaming PC, we'll have to head into my server room. And this is a custom PC that I built specifically for City Skylines 2. I wanted to build the most powerful PC on the planet to play this game. So I built in the Fractal North case. Two reasons for that. I love building in fractal cases. They're very spacious and easy to build in. And two, this is just a beautiful case. I think it's the most attractive case on the market. It's an absolute tragedy that's in my server room right now. Inside of here, I have an Asus ProArt Z690 motherboard. It has Thunderbolt connectivity as well as 10 gig connectivity. I also have a Ryzen 9 7950X3D processor in here, 96 gigs of RAM, and an RTX 4090. I went with the Founders Edition mostly because I like the way it looks. And again, that doesn't really matter because it's in my server room. So great. Let's head back in my office and take a look at the streaming PC. And this is a custom PC that I built as well. This is actually built for City Skylines 1, so some of the specs might make a lot of sense for that game. First of all, I used the Fractal Design 7 case. Absolutely wonderful case. Got this one because at the time, I thought it was the most beautiful case that Fractal made. I have a Ryzen 7 5800X3D processor. I have 64 gigs of RAM, an RTX 4080 GPU. I also have a couple of capture cards. I have one internal capture card, the Elgato 4K60 Mark II. This is what I use to connect my gaming PC into this computer. And then I also have an Elgato 4KX capture card. This is one of the new external capture cards. I'm using this for my camera for streaming. Now let's talk about my monitors. The big one right here is a Samsung 28-inch Viewfinity ultra-wide monitor, and it is garbage. I've actually owned two of these. I have one for me and one for my wife, and these weren't purchased for YouTube. These were the workhorse monitors that we had during the pandemic. Basically, both monitors had the exact same problem. There's a bunch of garble on the screen after you turn it off, and that lasts for 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes longer. So I basically can't ever turn this monitor off. Next to that, I have an Asus ProArt 14-inch portable display. I bought this specifically for chat. I wanted to be able to place this on the side of my monitor when I had a one PC setup and be able to go through chat without it getting on the screen. Now that I have an Elgato prompter, I don't really need to worry about chat being on the screen, so I'm now using this for my activity. For a keyboard for this PC, I'm using the Logitech MX mechanical keyboard. This is an absolutely wonderful keyboard. It's one of the few mechanicals that doesn't fatigue my fingers. And for my mouse, I'm using a Logitech G Pro wireless. This is a fine mouse. The one thing I don't like about it is it's not USB-C. So I don't know that I would buy this again, unless of course the new model has USB-C. Other than that, I love it because of how lightweight it is. I really like a lightweight mouse. And these actually control both of my PCs because I use a program called Input Director. It's freeware, and from my experience, it's been rock solid. You can even copy and paste between the PCs, so it makes it feel like I only have one PC, which is wonderful for my setup. Next, let's take a look at my streaming accessories, and we'll start out with my 3 Stream Decks. Now, I get it. Stream Decks have folders and they also have different pages, so I don't need 3, but I like having all of the buttons available to me at all points in time, which is why I have all of these Stream Decks. Now, the first Stream Deck is a Stream Deck Plus, and it's the main Stream Deck that I use for recording. So I have my OBS controls on there. I can start a recording, pause a recording, take a screen cap. I can mute my microphone. I can also change the volume of my microphone, change the volume of my gaming PC, change Spotify volume, and change my system volume. So it's incredibly valuable to me. This is probably the one I use the most. Second to that, I use the Stream Deck XL. This is the one I use the most during a stream. It allows me to turn on all of my lights, my room lighting, my key lighting, my background lighting. It also lets me switch between my profiles for streaming and recording, and it lets me change all of my scenes. I can also change cameras here and even turn on timers and check my internet speed. So this one is also incredibly valuable to me. And then the smaller Stream Deck is just the OG Stream Deck, and it has Twitch controls. And I'll be honest, I underutilize this one. I need to get better about using this. I could change the game that I'm playing easily with the click of a button. I could mark moments that are interesting in my stream. I run ads. It's basically the only thing I use this for is I'll run ads before we start the stream. And I also will, from time to time, throw up my socials with that button that I have on there. Looking above my monitor, I have an Elgato prompter, and I'm just gonna say it, I'm an Elgato prompter stan. This is my favorite streaming device that I've ever purchased. It's completely changed the way that I record videos and that I interact with stream. And that's because it is not just a teleprompter, which is something that it does. It's also a device that you can throw your chat on, and it's a monitor. So when I'm recording videos and I've pre-built something, if I want to reference, I'll throw it on my prompter and I just have to look up and I can see what I built in the past. During a stream, I'll throw chat up there and I'll have myself underneath that so I can make sure that I'm remaining centered in the frame. And when I'm chatting and reading the chat, because my camera's behind the prompter, it appears that I'm talking directly to you because I am. And then the third thing that it does is it acts as a traditional teleprompter. So I can feed lines of text in there and read it off there, and it will actually move as I read through the lines. And this is actually a new feature that's made another device from Elgato that I purchased obsolete, the Stream Deck Pedal. This is basically a 3-button Stream Deck, and I used to use it to move forward and backwards through a script and pause it, and now I no longer need to do that because there's now voice tracking. So it's a great device. I'm gonna find another reason to use it, most likely switching between scenes on a stream, but for now, it's not really being used for much of anything, but it is a great device. Next, let's take a look at my editing machine, and for this, I have a Mac Studio with M2 Ultra chip and 128 gigs of RAM. For a while in my content creation journey, I was buying what I needed at the specific time that I was doing something, and I ended up replacing things often, and I just don't want to do that anymore. So I decided to future-proof myself and get the absolute exact machine that I wanted, the machine that I think is going to last me for a number of years. Attached to my Mac Studio, I have 2 studio displays. I didn't always have 2. I initially had 1, but I needed more screen real estate. And after trying a cheapo monitor as my secondary monitor, I just really wanted to have the exact same monitor. So I ended up saving up and buying a second one. And honestly, I don't regret it at all. This is an absolutely fantastic monitor. It's the best monitor I've ever used. 5K display, color accurate. It is perfect for what I do, and as my daily driver, it's an absolute pleasure to use. I've started capturing my B-roll for City Skylines 2 content on this machine. The way that I'm able to do that is I picked up an additional Elgato 4KX capture card. This is the first external capture card that can capture 4K 60 on a Mac. That was always the reason that I never used my editing machine as my streaming PC. But for that, I need to have another monitor. So I use my M1 iPad Pro, so I'm able to use screen mirroring for this, and I'll throw OBS and a Finder window on my iPad. And what that allows me to do is project City Skylines 2 to one of my monitors. I can do the recording from the iPad in OBS, see the file on my iPad, and then drag that file directly into Final Cut. This has saved me so much time over the last 6 months, and finding out that an iPad that I already had has this functionality has been absolutely wonderful. Next to that iPad, I have another Stream Deck Plus. And this is actually the most important Stream Deck that I have. I use it for editing. I'm able to scrub through my timeline. I'm able to make cuts. I'm able to add titles. I'm able to render. So this actually speeds up my workflow quite a bit, and it has saved me so much time. I absolutely love this device, and I love it hooked up to my Mac for editing. And then next to the Stream Deck is my shame, the Apple keyboard and mouse. I know that people hate these devices. I hate and love them at the same time. For the keyboard, it has a fingerprint reader, which is incredibly helpful when you're unlocking your device. And also it works for entering passwords. So it's very, very, very convenient. So I do find that it is useful, even if the keyboard travel isn't great and it's not very ergonomic. Speaking of ergonomics, this mouse is ridiculous. It charges from the bottom and it's not at all ergonomic. However, it has this touchpad on the top, which basically makes it the very best mouse for editing in Final Cut. I'm able to scrub back and forth through my timeline, and I can't give this up. I actually can't edit using any other mouse because of this one feature. Next, let's take a look at my camera gear, starting with the Elgato Facecam Pro. This is a 4K webcam with a gigantic lens, and because of that, it has basically the best picture quality for a webcam that you're gonna find. Now, I used to use this for different meetings, so Zoom meetings, Google Meet meetings, and it was great for that. This is also the camera that I inadvertently face revealed on and I began streaming with. And on a stream, I didn't think it looked quite as good. Picture quality is not great. You don't get any of that background blur. And because of that, I decided to use a camera that I already had for streams. That's the Sony ZV-E10. And I use this in combination with my Sony 11mm E1.8 prime lens. This is a great lens. It gives you a little bit of the background blur and it gives you a wide angle. So it worked great as an on-stream camera, but I decided to swap this out because of overheating issues. It's a problem with the Sony ZV-E10 is it doesn't have a fan. So when I saw that a Sony FX30 was going on sale, the Sony FX30 being a cinema camera that has a built-in fan, I had to get it. So I use this on stream now. I use this for almost all my videos. I have a Sigma 16mm f1.4 prime lens on here, and it gives you that really blurry background, a really crisp picture, and it's just a really high quality camera. This was an absolutely stream leveling up camera, and I would highly recommend this thing to anybody. Now, the best camera in the world will look bad without good lighting, which is why I've invested heavily in lighting. Starting out with these two Elgato key lights. The first one right here I use as my key light, and the second one I use as a fill light. So the key light illuminates me, and the fill light illuminates the shadow that the key light creates on the other side of my face. So these I picked up because they're easy to use, and they have an app that I have on my streaming PC that allows me to change the brightness and the color of the light. I picked up the Amaran 150C that I use as my background light afterwards. In hindsight being 2020, I might have just saved up a little bit longer and picked up one of these as the key light. Just because of how versatile it is, I turn it on and off with a Govee switch, and I have that Govee switch tied into my Stream Deck, so I'm able to turn that off from my Stream Deck as well. It's an absolutely wonderful setup. I also have two lamps that I use as practical lights. So this one is just a lamp from Target, and the other one is kind of a lamp with an Edison bulb. I have these both connected up to my Stream Deck using those same Govee plugs so I can turn them on and off. And the main purpose of practical lights is just to illuminate your background and give you a little bit more separation from the background because it's illuminated. Moving along to audio equipment, we'll start out with my Rodecaster Pro 2. This is an absolutely ridiculous interface to have if you are just starting out as a YouTuber. It's one of the first pieces of equipment I actually bought though. And that's because I was really struggling with audio. I had used different interfaces and had problems. I had used different microphones and had problems. And I bought the Rodecaster Pro 2 because it had a special selection for a Shure SM7B microphone, which is the microphone that I use for all of my videos. It has been an absolute game changer in terms of audio quality. The thing is, this is an XLR interface that's really meant for podcasting. So it has 4 microphone inputs, and over time, I've ended up using all of them. I picked up a second microphone to have at my Mac. I also have a third microphone, which is my shotgun mic. That is a Rode NTG3B. I use this when I want to capture some of the room noise. I think it feels a little bit more natural, which is why I like that microphone. Now, for my 2 SM7Bs, I have different mic stands. One is the Elgato low profile mount. I actually just replaced this one because the new low profile mount has a gas spring, and it allows me to basically move the microphone wherever I want it to move. The other one is on a Wave desk stand, and this is just an absolutely wonderful mic stand for my use case, where I need to pick it up, have it in front of me, and then move it somewhere else. It keeps a heavy microphone like the SM7B completely stabilized, and I think it's a nice looking mount when I'm not using it, just kind of in the corner of my desk. Then for speakers, I have 2 sets of Kanto YU2s and 2 subwoofers. Now, the reason I have 2 sets of these is initially one set was hooked up to my PCs and the other set was hooked up to my Mac. But over time, I realized I could just hook these into the Rodecaster, which left me with an extra set of speakers and subwoofers. So I just have everything hooked together right now, and I can hear everything out of all the speakers, which is really nice. But I would not recommend these things, which kind of pains me to say. And that's because I've had warranty claims on both the speakers and the subwoofer. For the speaker, I had a power adapter that actually started to smoke. They replaced that, no problem. And then for the subwoofer, I had one of those start making some weird sounds that made it sound like water was gushing into my room. Really freaked me out. Reached out to Kanto, and they ended up telling me that they would replace it under warranty, but I had to pay them to ship it back. And to me, that's wrong. If you have a defective product and if I've owned it for less than a year, you should stand behind your product and send me a new one. And then finally, we have my studio monitors. These are some Audio-Technica ATH M50Xs. These are absolutely wonderful. Not only are they inexpensive relative to other studio monitors, but they have a completely balanced and neutral sound that's completely elevated the game for me when I'm editing. I used to really struggle editing audio, and since I've got these, people generally don't complain that the music's too loud or that my voice is too boomy or that I'm too quiet, because what I'm hearing is as natural as can be. So highly recommend these. These are absolutely wonderful. Now, you can't talk about audio without also talking about sound treatment, and that's because your audio equipment is only going to sound as good as the room that it's in. So I picked up these Elgato Wave panels because I was having all sorts of echo and reverb problems in this room. Now, these brought down the reverb some, but I was having problems with the height of the room. And because of that, I picked up these acoustic ceiling clouds from Uplift Desk. They made a pretty big difference, and I like these. I like the way that they look, but for one thing. And that is, there were indentations in these clouds when I got them. I didn't feel like sending them back, so I just kind of live with it. But what really made the room sound even better is these panels right here. This is a walnut panel from the wood veneer hub. These come in strips, and all the wood veneer is actually attached to a sound matting, a sound dampening matting, and you screw the matting to your wall. So it's really easy to take these things down. It's really easy to work with them. The only part that kind of stunk was working around the outlet that I have in the wall, but everything else was fairly simple. And these have made my room sound a ton better. Then lastly, I thought I'd just zoom around the office a little bit so you could kind of see what the office looks like. Starting out right here with the YouTube play button, I still can't believe I have this thing. I can't believe that there's 100,000 people who would watch the channel, let alone 751,000 like there are at the time of recording it. It still blows my mind. But that means a lot to me, so that's why that's right there. It's right above where I sit. I can see it all the time. Next to that, I have a Madison Neighborhoods map, and this is from Native Maps. It's absolutely beautiful. It has all the neighborhoods of Madison. Next to that, we have a Verde Beach Metro map. Now, this is actually merch from the merch store. This was made by a fan of the channel. They made this and I purchased the design from them. But before I put anything on the store, I always purchase a sample. So this is the first copy of this map, and I just think it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. So I just love to take a look at that. It reminds me of the series that, in my opinion, made the channel. So it means a lot to me. To the right of that, I have an IKEA pegboard storage system, and this is both a set piece and just office storage. So I have notebooks that I don't use, an electric screwdriver that I rarely use, SimCity for the SNES, and a bunch of mail that I should probably read. And I also have this picture of Manor Lords, which the Hooded Horse people gave to me. Underneath that, I have my LTT backpack, and I'm just gonna tell you, this is the best piece of YouTuber merch that I have ever purchased. I would highly recommend this thing to anybody. I took it to Finland. It was an absolute godsend. You can check it. You can fit all your gear in here. You can fit camera lenses. This is how I was able to bring the stream to Finland. So I love this backpack. I will sing its praises forever. Next to that, we have the bookshelf. This is what you actually see in the stream as well. The bookshelf has a bunch of old gear, some cool beers, some books that I've read, and then a bunch of collectibles. That's why there's this Wampus from Discord. They gave this to me for Christmas in 2022. That's why we have the Bernie's Mittens beer right here. I love this. Someone sent this to me. Bunch of books. Some of these are books that I've read personally. Some of these are books that I read for planning school. Some of those are just planning books that I've enjoyed, and others are just books that I think are neat. As far as other collectibles on here, we got this amazing knight helmet that Hooded Horse sent me to celebrate Manor Lords. I've also got this bear right here, which my YouTube partner manager sent to me for Christmas last year. And then I have something totally frivolous. It's this YouTube sub counter by Lametric. It can also display the number of people that are watching you on stream. It doesn't do anything besides look cool, and the number changes every, week or so, and it makes me excited. I see a new number on there, I get happy because, higher number equals better. To the right of that, I have my Wisconsin beer bottle cap map. I love this thing so much. I've been working on filling it out for years. Anytime I drink a new beer and I get a new bottle top, I'll throw it up there. So if you send a beer my way, it'll probably end up there if it's in a bottle. And then opposite of that, I have my Bucks championship flag. I actually used to have this at my desk when I worked for the city of Madison. So that's why it's here now. This is now where I work. So there's my flag. Underneath that, I have an IKEA leather chair. This is something that I always imagined that I would sit and bang away at scripts on, but in reality, it normally collects garbage. I also have this gaming footstool. It's kind of a weird thing. It's basically a desk chair without the back, but it's surprisingly comfortable for what it does. And then finally, I figured we wrap up with the steel case gesture chair. This is the infamous chair from the chair stream. It is an absolutely game-changing purchase. If you don't have a good office chair, I can tell you, you'll be a lot happier if you get one. This thing is super comfortable. It comes fully assembled, and it is just a beautiful looking chair. So it's so comfortable that I have inadvertently fallen asleep in the chair as I'm editing a video late at night. It's that good. So highly recommend this chair, especially with that footstool, although it's a dangerous combo because you will fall asleep. And with that, you've seen everything in my office. If you have questions about anything that you've seen in this video, let me know down in the comments below, and I will try to address every single one of them. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.